if I lived in Utah and I was having this conversation, I would be at very real risk to be excommunicated.
Okay.
How many, you said there's 10 children in your family?
Yeah.
What number are you?
5.
So 5. So you're a
Middle
middle
child.
child.
And your sister's older.
Yes.
Okay. That left as well. Yeah.
Okay. I'm a big believer that birth order plays a lot of factors in how we grow up to be as people. I mean, there's definitely something to birth order. I'm from a family of 3. I'm the eldest of 3. I'm also the one who tends to be the most outspoken. I'm the most angry about the beliefs I feel that were sort of forced upon me to believe as right. That's and that's my basic sort of fire about religion that always makes me seem like a rebel to someone who has unwavering faith, is that I question, and I don't want you to tell me that your religion, your book, your articles of faith are the only way and everything else is wrong. Don't tell me that. I mean, I'm not going to just sit here and buy it. And so many people do, the sheeple. And I feel like, I don't know what I was going to say now.
Well, I think there's obviously so many commonalities between you two, as far as being and having a religion really kind of forced upon you, and reevaluating and coming out in a rebirth of actually having religion. Because I've thought about you, and we've talked about the whole connection with religion, and my answer to everything is fuck them, move on, I don't care, whatever. But you want religion. You want to have the church recognize you and have that, yes, in some sense, because it's very much a part of who you are. And so instead
it's a part of my life. My husband works in the church community. It's his profession. He's a church professional.
Right.
And I was pissed for a long time growing up that as a child, I was raised to believe one set of rules. This is right, Matt. We're going to feed you all of this. You're going to believe all this like a good boy. And you just go out there into the world and you reject all the other ideas. What good comes from that? I just didn't. I was the kid that was in confirmation when I was 12 or 13, whatever age you do confirmation. My mom got a call from the pastor and was deeply concerned about the questions I was asking in our confirmation class. And I was like, when was this written? You know, like talking about the Bible, I'm like, well, that does not line up at all with, this in current time. So I was going against the grain too, like you were. And I was lucky that my parents were they were okay with me being, it bothered them. They were worried about me sometimes because they're very deeply rooted in their faith, but they were okay with me being the seeker.
Well, that's good.
And I'm lucky for that. And I see that. Like you were sitting here talking about being terrified. And I've really never been terrified of what my parents would think about something that I thought or did. And I think that's a blessing, more that I meet other people.
And now that you know that,
Now that I know that.
You're in the process of it.
Right.
So what are you doing now? It's obviously been pretty intense, and the writing and things like that are hugely cathartic. What are you doing now to just keep you on this path that you're on?
So much therapy.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, we really are all connected and need each other. And the fact that you were able to say to your husband, I don't think I'm going to make it unless I take some really extreme, avenues. And so I think that's amazing that you two at least have that friendship that you can.
Oh, I mean, and like Lance he's like my best friend. Best friend. Like, I think that the issues of us having different faith beliefs, like the thing that unites us is creativity. There was some definitely hurtful comments, when I told my parents I was leaving, my dad responded like, I can't believe your marriage isn't imploding. And that made my husband mad. Because we're still the same people. Like there's not some like big, that was something that was a little scary initially for Lance. When I first left, he was like, okay, so are you the same? And it was like, yeah. With a couple of months time.
Because it's a pretty strict lifestyle to lead, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's, no alcohol, no drugs.
Already out.
Yeah.
No coffee, no tea.
Screwed.
Abstinence before
no
marriage.
Coffee, no tea? Why no? Why?
No alcohol, no
What's
sex.
that all about? I mean, the alcohol one, there's a lot of religions that won't let you,
Unless you're Catholic, then they
That's
say, bring it
true.
on.
And they got a whole other set of problems. but where does the no coffee, no tea come in?
It comes from a revelation in Doctrine and Covenants about like brewed drinks. It's
Brewed drinks?
Joseph Smith, he got revelation, and it actually was a lot of like pretty forward-thinking stuff at the time, that it was like meat in moderation and eating things within the season, and then it was like no alcohol or just different things, and talking about the harmful effects on the body. But it's hilarious to go like on, like there's so many Mormon women who are crazy addicted to Diet Coke, and there's like this. There's all these really weird.
Tell me
people
something. What are some things that people don't know about devout Mormons that they would, just not know?
It's like when I went to BYU, there was a delivery service that you could pay somebody to bring you a bottle of a caffeinated drink on campus.
Why?
Because there was no caffeinated anything on campus.
Oh my goodness.
Like the food court didn't have like any caffeinated drinks.
So I'm not naming
Wild.
names, but I'm from Lake Oswego, where there's a big temple.
No names.
But I won't say a name. But anyway, there's a big temple. And several of the Mormon friends, lovely women that went over to BYU and Rick's, when they got there, they drank too many caffeinated drinks and ended up putting themselves in the ER because they drank so many caffeinated drinks.
That's a wild party.
I know.
The Diet Coke was.
It's like, oh, yeah, I know.
That's weird.
But that's,
yeah,
your
but
body's not used to all that caffeine.
I mean, there's people that like, once again, it's so family, and there's like even regional stuff. If you get like deeper in southern Utah versus northern Utah, there's people who are like caffeine at all evil, and there's people who are like hardcore drinkers of, what's that stuff? You drink it through a filtered straw. It has tons of caffeine.
A filtered straw? I
There's
don't know, but I'm
it's
interested.
a South American drink.
And
you brew the
Kava.
leaves.
Kava?
It's not kava, but I would love to try that.
That's a different type.
No, it's this is gonna drive me crazy. You brew it.
Mama!
Herba mate. Mate.
What?
Mate.
Mate.
You guys don't know what mate is?
No. That's why we called
Herba
you in
mate.
to drink with us, so you can educate us.
Yeah, so there's like yerba mate, and there's, there's all sorts of, like, Mormonism has lots of really weird.
So there's a
I
whole.
know. I want to know the quirks.
Well, it sounds like as soon as you tell someone they can't do something, what do they want to do?
They want to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So
What
there's a whole
else?
lot of that.
Who's a good Mormon? Who's a bad Mormon?
Who's a good
I'm a bad Mormon. I'm not a good candidate for being a Mormon. But who's a good candidate for being a Mormon? Someone who blank.
Someone who needs a lot of guidance and security to move through the world.
Sheeple.
Guidance and security. Okay,
Which I don't think that's like necessarily the worst thing.
I
but
don't
like,
either. We
if
cannot all
somebody-
be followers. We
But
cannot all
like you
be
said,
leaders.
your husband's easy. He's easy. That's okay. That's an okay thing for him. I tend to I don't know. I just like, you can put any kind of rule in front of me and I'll just decide that doesn't work for me and I'll break it within seconds. I won't even think twice about it.
Well, for me, it depends on where my moral compass points me.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not saying my moral compass is always pointing me in, due north, right position. I'm just saying I feel like anything that I feel is morally wrong or I can identify within the context of someone else's group's beliefs, I'm not going to sit by and be like, well, I'll just be quiet about that. And I feel like that's what so many people do in religion. They either don't actually research it and learn all about it to know what they believe in.
But when
They
you
don't
start
ask
as a child,
questions.
I mean, you're a baby, you're a child. You don't really get that
You
opportunity.
but that's where we just keep reproducing. And, it's my whole problem. I have a problem with missionary work. I have a problem with going into
How do you feel about doggy style?
Doggy style is great. Life's essential. But missionary work, God, no.
I couldn't help it.
No, I'm also...
On Dayquil. I'm sorry.
No, so
It's a great question.
I do think so. There's this woman who I'm friends with, and she's a lovely woman. And when she stumbled upon the church, she had lost her husband. She'd lost her daughter to addiction. She just lived a really difficult life, and she found enormous peace and comfort.
Absolutely.
In this idea of eternal families, and this
Absolutely.
idea of being able to be with her daughter again, to see her husband again, to be able to go through and do even ordinances and get baptized for them, save them, whatever. And I think that religion for me, what I grew up with was very different than what her experience is going to be, because she's coming in and
She's coming back to the womb and the fold.
She's choosing it of her own volition.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
She's not just being indoctrinated by birth.
Yeah. And I've explored a couple of different churches, and it's hard because I was raised with this idea that there was this one really truth for everybody, and that never sat right with me, and I was always I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But to really truly have that exploded, I haven't been able to go really yet into any situation and find that same kind of saving peace and comfort that I see a lot of people
And you
seek
might
out.
not.
I know, I probably am.
Yeah.
Are you-
Therapy and songwriting is maybe your comfort.
Well, yeah, everybody has their
Yeah.
church or whatever they worship, and for me, for sure, songwriting, being able to talk about my experiences has been huge. But yeah, I think most of the time, everyone that I've met, they're just so deserving of compassion.
What is your favorite thing, though, would you take away from Mormonism that you will take away with you?
That's a good question. Let me think for a minute. There's a lot of things. I think family, the family orientedness. Although it might seem like it's not, it's counterintuitive, they actually do push you to get an education and to learn. So that
Although counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Well said.
But the reason I'm assuming is because the more education you have, the more money you make, and then you have good jobs. I mean, that's what I saw a whole lot of.
Yeah, I mean,
It does seem like they got some money.
They do got some.
oh, they do.
Yeah.
They do.
I mean, their temples are not shabby.
I got married in one. It was beautiful.
And you got to pay for all those babies.
I mean,
It's a princess castle.
what's the difference
is,
between
isn't it?
Mormonism and Scientology, other than maybe
I don't know that
the
much
length
about
of
Scientology.
the length of time they've been around as an organization? I mean, doesn't a lot of this sound very L. Ron Hubbard-esque?
Yeah, but I don't think he really brings Jesus Christ into Scientology very much, does he?
No, he doesn't, but it just feels like the same set of ordinances and codes, and, they definitely want more affluent, members in the organization, and it's very
it's
restricted.
It's interesting because there's I'm going to take the non-cynical view. So I think that
all right.
there's the cynical view,
All right.
which does check out in terms of at a larger organizational level, do they benefit more by having people who are financially able, of course. But what I saw was more at family levels. Like my dad, he saw his mom drop out of school after 8th grade, and when she divorced my grandpa, they struggled horribly financially for many, many years. And so I got a lot of confusing messages from my dad about what it meant to be a woman and all sorts of stuff. But he also was no, it is so critical that you get an education, that you be able to provide for yourself. And that was echoed at church from a lot of, people who were in really unfortunate circumstances, that they were no, you need to not be in the same type of situation where you're disadvantaged because you aren't educated, where you may be stuck in a bad marriage, X,
That's
Y, Z.
wonderful. That's great.
So I mean, the pushing of people to be self-reliant, I saw it as more of, what I experienced, it was more of this community trying to help people avoid what their experiences
Seems
were.
kind of like, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but it seems like there's almost two faces. Like there's the be self-sufficient, be educated, be respectable in the world, be of means, take care of yourself, but then come home and be hyper conservative, serve your man, know your place as a woman or as a man. Am I
It's
off
what's
base there?
it's what's spoken and what's acted.
Right.
It's
Do as
very
I say,
confusing to me because
do as
growing
I say,
up,
not
my
as I do.
dad would constantly talk about how important it was for like women to be self-sufficient and to get an education and to do all this stuff. But then in the same turn, he would be very, dismissive and patriarchal and like not in a good way towards my mother. And he would complain about all of the women that he worked with. And if a commercial came on with a woman that looked too sexy, he'd be complaining about that. There was just a lot of like very confusing things. And I remember trying to confront him about it when I was a teenager, that I was like, what's the deal with all this mixed messaging? And
Have you ever felt
I never
sorry
got a
for
real
your dad?
response. Oh, of course. I mean, I think that I pretty much survived on empathy until I had my daughter. And then when I had my daughter, it
That
was
switch
like,
is it's a
it
light
was like,
switch.
wait a second, I was abused. I experienced a lot of stuff, and I am not ever going to treat her the way that you treated me. And so right now I'm trying to just lean into my fury.
Well, I was wondering if that's what this was all about, was that when your daughter was born, all of a sudden you had this major revelation of you, and this lion comes out, and how you would protect her, and you don't want her to be raised that way, and you're just like, so then these things come out
Oh
of you.
yeah, I mean, it was just so much unresolved stuff.
And then when she was born, it sounds like your pen to paper and the music just started flowing out of you.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a lot of. She's very musical. Freya, my daughter, Freya Blueberry, and our, I don't know, creativity is like one of the only things that's got me through in those moments. And literally every night she asks me to make up a different song for her while she goes to bed.
That's cool.
She walks around, she's singing about her life.
Oh, I love that.
And it's been like a huge anchor, obviously, in my marriage. Like after having this big shift of religion, it was like, okay, what do we do together? And the thing that seemed so obvious that we'd been doing the whole time, we met at an open mic, was music. Like, oh yeah, this is the creative thing that makes sense to us. And
So what would you like to see your music transition into?
oh, that's a good question.
Double platinum album. Come on,
really,
you can say it.
I honestly, it feels like a very shameless public healing.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like kind of this offering of like, hey, this is a lot of pain. I'm going to try to make some paint and do something with it.
I think our world needs it.
Yeah.
And people need to be brave. It's hard to be brave, and so I applaud you for that.
And I thank you for talking about Mormonism from a very balanced place, even as someone who describes himself as being post-Mormon.
And angry, it's still.
And angry, you really don't deliver it as angry. And I think it's important to be able to have a conversation about things that we don't necessarily agree on or see eye to eye about, and still be able to talk about it without it just being angry rage.
Right.
I think sometimes the message gets lost in that.
Yeah.
And you are I feel like a really great ambassador for someone who can have that conversation.
Oh,
Thank you for doing that with us.
And if you could see the Mormon church make one step in what direction, what would that be?
Ooh, that is a really good question. There's so many.
All right, I'll give you two.
five.
I'll give you two.
Oh, I went with five.
I'm gonna say adopting the idea that you find in Judaism that belonging comes before belief.
Ah.
So,
Wow. That's way bigger of an answer than I expected. I thought it was going to
Thank
be.
you, Hannah.
I thought it was going to be way more specific, but that was like all
It
encompassing.
was beautiful. I love it.
Thank you. Marie Osmond, fan or not?
not.
Okay.
Donnie?
These are a couple of my own little questions.
Yes.
Another question. Latter Days, have you seen it?
No, but I watched the trailer and I read the synopsis and I'm going to.
So
Really
mad.
good.
I watched it. Oh
You
my,
did?
I remember you told me
Oh,
to
that's
watch
right,
it.
that's right. But you did.
It was very graphic. I was not expecting so much male
Hotness.
loveness. There was a lot of, young.
Sexy.
A lot of shirts off parties.
And I think that's actually kind of accurate. I think that there are a lot of really sexy Mormon men, which I feel is kind of a waste.
You know,
but...
it's pretty funny because the attractiveness, it's there.
Well, you should watch that movie.
I mean, I
know.
And then I want to have a little follow up, and I want you to tell me if there's like any truth in it. Because in the movie, I'll give you one little spoiler. Might not be much of a spoiler for you, but they send this young man to conversion therapy,
Which made me think of some of the therapy you might have gone through.
and right. So like, it makes me wonder. Is that hyper sensationalized for television, or I mean, how real is that? Are kids still going through that today?
It was a shock therapy type of thing,
Yeah. Well, I mean, conversion therapy, I just happen to be friends with nice, pretty open-minded people. So I feel like my perspective, if somebody is very intolerant or would do something like that, I don't think I'd be friends with them. So
But
it's
is
not
it
happening. It's not
happening?
happening in my circle
Oh,
that
I
I
see,
know
I
of
see.
because
Right.
people that I know just would never do that.
And this movie was made 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago? It was a while
Definitely
ago.
have had conversations with
old.
parents who are like very concerned about the gender expressions that they're seeing in their children. and-
Gender expressions. Okay, that feels very Handmaid's Tale-ish to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the conversation of gender is happening with like 11, 12-year-olds. You know, they're in middle school.
Right.
They're like sitting there, and there's this kind of politicized issue of gender, and they're then taking that in and trying to explore themselves. And so, you know, parents that are like, oh my gosh, my child like thinks they might be gay now because somebody else said they're gay, and I'm like, why does that hurt you?
Yeah.
Or, you know, they want to change how they dress or how they express. And I think I've seen, at least within my siblings, I still have several siblings who are quite young, that's kind of confusing.
How old is your youngest sibling?
She's 14?
Okay.
I think-
Okay, gives me some perspective.
That's still pretty back to back then, though. You were having
20 years.
babies.
So there were 20 years.
Every 2
11
years there
kids.
was babies.
So your mom was just pregnant for
Honestly,
a decade.
that's what I remember. Like my growing up, I remember taking care of my mom, like her taking naps, and I would go feed her peaches because that was the only thing that she could eat. And I used to ask people if they're pregnant all the time, not because they looked pregnant, but because I assumed women were just pregnant. Yeah. I mean, I've
just
60.
assumed women were pregnant.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
6
why
younger
wouldn't
siblings.
you? Yeah, why
that's
wouldn't
literally
you?
about every year and a half, 2 years, my parents would bring home like a VHS tape that had the ultrasound video on it.
And you're like, yeah, another one?
Well, we loved it.
Really?
We loved it. We always wanted. I mean, I think that anyone in a large family can probably tell you that your relationships with your parents suffer pretty significantly.
Yeah,
because there's just too many kids. but
The
as a
third one
result,
came into my household, and I remember telling my parents, enough is enough. Like, this is it. And they even told me, like, you came to us and said no more kids.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Attention was going away from me.
I had 5 kids, but I spread it out so much that it's like several of them were like first children again, you know.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
the community of siblings was very
I like
real.
that.
I mean, people say we're abnormally close, but like my older sister who left the church, I talked to her on the phone twice, if not 3 or 4 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'll sit and be on the phone not saying anything for like over an hour, and it's like, are you
Just to
still
know you're there, like just sitting on the
I
couch.
hope you got a
with
load
me.
of data.
Yeah.
So there's a neat camaraderie with that.
It goes into tribes.
Well, and a lot
how
of my-
close knit is your tribe?
All of my siblings are pretty like well educated. My oldest sister has her master's degree. My next brother has his master's. Next sister has her master's. Next brother has his master's degree. Next sister is me. I have a bachelor's. But like everybody's like, you know, pretty educated, and there's a lot of. I mean, even after 11 kids, my parents wanted more children actually. But it just.
Did nature finally say, sorry, sis?
No moss.
I mean, how does that,
So my youngest
where does it
sister-
end?
That uterus is on the ground.
yeah,
You gotta,
like no
done with
stitches
that.
needed.
Well, they try. Yeah, no,
That's
you're totally
after
fine.
3.
You're totally fine. But yeah, it's like a different kind of, it's a very unique and strange thing. And it's changing a lot now as people are marrying into the family and are like, okay, so you guys have some issues.
Yeah, does all of a sudden it opens up all of our doors, doesn't it?
Well,
a
regardless
little
of
bit?
faith, every family got some issues.
Oh
I
yeah,
think.
yeah. But it's interesting, being on the other side of things that there was kind of a very specific way that the family was oriented my whole life, and now as people are blooming
Yes, having more
and
and more
going
babies.
into adulthood, well, not even just that, but like me and my sister, for instance, leaving the church, and I don't hide it. Like I'm very transparent, and I always have been. So there's a lot of weird conversations, and then I'm obviously not talking to my dad. It's just weird. Everybody.
And those dynamics are in every family. I mean, we all go
Every
through that.
family.
But I want to
Every
bring it back to
family.
Hannah's music because I think it's beautiful. Where can we find your music and where?
HannahSophiaMusic.com.
Okay.
With a PH. I'm on, Facebook, Instagram. If you want like the really behind the scenes, like daily touching base, I have a Facebook group called the Hannah Sophia Music Tribe.
Okay.
And that's really the best
And-
I love
place
that.
to stay
And
plugged
if
in.
someone wants to know more about the online community that you talked about being Mormon, where
Right.
would they go to find support online?
Well, the Facebook groups are prolific.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you just
So-
type in like Mormon
You could just
on
do
Facebook?
post Mormon. I mean, a lot of my friends who've actually left the church started out having a safe forum to ask their questions in these Facebook groups. So there's one that's called like Post Mormon and Agnostic Ladies, and there's like the.
But we would really encourage people to find some place and not just sit in silence. And
Go online.
Oh, there's so
Go online,
many.
learn, ask questions, do all of those things.
There's someone that's feeling the way you're feeling.
Yeah. Hannah Sophia, thank you so
you.
much for
You're
sitting down with
welcome.
us and
It's
shedding
fun.
some light on Mormon culture.
Yeah.
Really been enlightening.
Finding your voice. We're proud of you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you next time.